Hello everyone and welcome to Walford Weekly, your weekly EastEnders podcast, where this week we'll be discussing the episodes released on the BBC iPlayer and aired on BBC television in the UK for Monday the 1st of August 2022. Hope you're all well. I trust that you all are. We've had what a wonderful week this week. What a wonderful week. We've had nice weather. The Lionesses won the European Cup. Well done, Lionesses. Good on you. And for another week I'm joined by my BFF for life, and that is Rob. Hello Rob, how are you?
Hello, Alexander. How are you? I'm very well this week. BFF for life. That's so nice.
Yes.
You never say this sort of thing to me off camera. You always save it for the viewers, don't you?
I do. I just want...
Is it real? Is it real? BFF for life? I mean, I hope so. BFF.
I don't even know what it means, to be honest with you.
No, neither do I. It's one of those youth phrases. EastEnders will teach us that phrase in about 10 years' time. It'll be fine. Don't you worry about it. And the other exciting thing about this week, as Neighbours leaves us, Big Brother is coming back. Me and Alex just had a half-hour conversation about it before we started recording, so we shan't repeat ourselves. But needless to say, I'm very excited because it's one of my favourite shows of all time. I'm very excited. Thank you, ITV. Love you. So, before we get started on this week, because we have much to discuss, it's August now, which means it's time to change the dot. Now, we've gone from July, which is dots. Say goodbye to the I Want picture, Alex. I love having this on my wall for a month. It was great. This image just follows me around everywhere all month. It's been marvellous. So, we go from July to who have we got for August? Let's have a look.
Oh, my dear. Oh, dear.
Oh, that's close up, isn't it?
That's not kind for June, is it? Not kind at all.
But you know what that's from, don't you? That's from the one-hander that she did. That's
the one-hander. It certainly is.
So that's iconic, actually, with a big old cigarette on the go as well. The big old Benson and Hedges menthol.
Do you think she used to smoke B&H menthol? I always wonder when I see the packet.
I think it was Berkeley menthol.
I thought...
No, I can't... Actually, Dorchester menthol, that's what she used to smoke, because...
The green and white packet.
That's the one, because she used to smoke the same as my aunties used to. That's how I remember.
Right.
I remember her coming into the shop one day and saying, "You shall please, your Andy," and then being picked off the side. It's like, oh my god, smokes the same as my auntie. So there we go. So that is August's photo. Pretty baby.
Lovely.
Pretty baby. Love it.
I mean,
Love it.
I must remind anyone who's listening to the podcast that you could actually see this picture. Also, watch Rob as he tries to pull up the calendar. Every month he fails at this.
Every month.
You can see the picture if you join us on our YouTube channel, which you can find there. We go to apart already. Which you can find by searching Walford Weekly Podcast on YouTube, or just following the links on our Twitter or our Instagram, just by going to @WalfordWeekly. And that will be explained too for Rob. Another thing I would just say that stay listening to the end of the podcast, because at the end we'll be doing I Ain't Want to Gossip, and we'll be talking about your replies about the two-hander, or specifically an email that we got a couple of weeks ago, because we asked for your suggestions for two-handers. We'll also be talking about a poll that we ran last week after last week's episode of whether you skip the intro or not. And also just
I knew
tweets
you wouldn't let me down
as well. Well, let's not release. Let's keep it as a tease and see what the the final results are at the end of the podcast. But before we do any of that, we must start off by talking about this week's EastEnders. So we are starting with Ben this week. What a wonderful place to start, and his ongoing troubles and woes. But it kind of came to a head this week, didn't it, when he was found passed out in a coma in the bins, just outside. I think it was just outside the Albert, after going to a chemsex party. And what a chemsex party to show at 7:30 on a Monday evening.
What absolute filth! Men kissing everywhere, drugs. Like, oh, filth. Utter filth.
Absolute.
7:30 on BBC One.
Where's Mary Whitehouse when you need her?
Honestly, she would have had an heart attack over this. Outrageous.
Her wrist would have ached from writing all the letters, of course.
Thank you. Good clarification. So yes, Ben. Ben's basically just on the whole downward spiral thing. I believe that one of those weeks where you could synopsisize it as Ben spirals out of control, as he does so beautifully every week. But I have to say, this was all right this week. It was okay. He turns up at this party because he's supposed to be going to Lexi's dance exam. Or dance, like recital or whatever it was. Tap. Yes, tap, not ballet, tap. Instead decides to go and get some drugs. Now, This drug, can I just say, what was it called? GBD that the doctors described it was. Did you write it down?
I wrote it down because I always write important information
because
down.
I've never heard of it. I'm not saying it doesn't exist, but I have never heard of this drug in my life.
Luckily, Callum had heard of it because Callum had just about.
Well, yes, because they talk about them at work.
They talk about it all the time from work.
All the time. It's water cooler conversation
every day. And you know, it comes. So we both thought that those little glass pipettes things. We thought they was poppers, but it's presumably it's not.
And you're definitely. What I do know is that you're definitely not supposed to drink poppers. So that's why when he started pouring them into his drink, I was kind of like, either he's about to die at any second, or they're not poppers.
I mean, it had the effect. I think it would have caused if it had been poppers, but it wasn't poppers. It was gamma beta lacto.
That sounds like
Never
a vitamin.
heard of it. It does. It sounds man-made, doesn't it? Well, presumably it is man-made. It's not like, you know, cannabis or
honestly,
you know, any of that kind of stuff.
Where have all these drugs come? Things have changed since the 60s, haven't they, Alex?
No. God, since Woodstock.
No, all I used to take was Pro Plus. Oh, no, that's so no, never heard of GBD. I don't know what they do. Apparently, they lower your inhibitions, which is safe to say Ben's inhibitions were lower than they've ever been in their life because he's pouring them. Well, he's getting all sort of het up and nervous and anxious because he's turned up at this party, realised that he's basically walked into a gay orgy because there's, you know, men kissing everywhere. I don't know where this party was. Filth. It just looked like it was utter filth. And sort of walked in and poured basically an entire bottle of this GBD into the beer bottle he was having, which was never going to bode well to start off with. And then just downs the bottle essentially, and then immediately begins overdosing. I like the fact that James at first was kind of like, oh yeah, come here, sexy Ben, and they start kissing. It's Baltimore gay kissing everywhere. It's great. But even then, James is kind of like, you know what, yeah, right. Don't even know what that is. And James eventually turns around and says, "Well, do you know what? I don't need this. In the taxi you go." Shoves an overdosing Ben into a taxi and you go home. We'll sort later. We'll see you later. So
I mean, he didn't really care though.
Didn't
I was
really
going to say,
care, no.
James kind of dismissed him, didn't he? There was when Ben was tripping, he saw Lewis. Ben, didn't he?
Yes.
There was that kind of cut where you kind of 1 minute he saw Lewis, and that kind of also tipped Ben over a little bit as well, didn't it?
And it shocked me. My mouth fell open slightly at that. I wasn't expecting Lewis. I wasn't expecting Lewis to just kind of appear at that moment to win. So yeah, that happens, and then Ben gets kind of shoved into the back of a taxi, gets sent home. Doesn't decide to just drive straight home. He decides to just stop outside this little area that's got all these garbage cans in. I don't know whether he kind of just like, I need to get out of the taxi, and then just left. Because the taxi driver certainly didn't get paid, so I don't know what happened there. But he gets out, and I have to say, you know, credit where credit's due. I thought Max Bowden was excellent during these scenes. He really, he really portrayed that whole sort of overdose kind of. I was really sort of convinced by it. I thought it was a really, really well done scene. If I'm honest.
Yeah, the phone call he made to Lexi, I thought was very heartfelt, and it was portrayed really. You could tell the distress in Ben that he kind of realised he'd done something wrong there, and it was almost like his last. It was almost like his goodbye to Lexi, wasn't it? The way it was,
because you kind of feel like if you're in that state, you do feel like you're about to die. So I hear, and so basically he passes out. Now, not before Suki sort of comes across him and just sort of looks at him. Filth. It's honestly, we were at this party, and Suki sort of discovers him lying in these rubbish bins and just sort of looks down at him, arches an eyebrow, and walks away. Which you would, wouldn't? It doesn't surprise. Did anybody expect Suki to immediately rush to his aid? I think not.
There was a small part of me. There was a teeny little part of me that thought maybe she will, because maybe she'll think that would appease the rift between Kheerat and Ben. But then it kind of swashed away when I thought, no, that's nonsense. Of course she wouldn't. And then she walked away.
Because she wants to throw all the blame onto Ben anyway. So works for. In fact, I think probably Suki's half. Well, I know Suki does believe that she's aware of her own guilt. She just won't display it that well. But Ben dying from a drug overdose and rubbish tip would work out quite well for her, I imagine. So she just.
I'm surprised Suki didn't do more, to be honest with you. Like, got a bin bag and covered, kick him a bit, and then put bin bags over him. Just like, you know, she's quite kind if you think about it. She kind of left him so he could be discovered later on. And luckily he was.
Heart attack.
Luckily he was discovered because Jay and Callum go on the search for him after Kathy hears the message that he left for Lexi. Kathy's like, oh, my boy. Everyone starts looking out for him, and Jay and Callum find him. Callum seemed genuinely quite distressed by it, but at the same time still wanted to keep a distance and arm's length throughout this whole thing. I don't think Callum still hasn't forgiven Ben, especially when he then discovered that Ben's sleeping with James.
Yes, well, I mean, the Callum fans were apocalyptic this week.
Weren't they just?
Callum is dead to them. Okay, because Callum essentially kind of, once he'd realised that Ben had just overdosed on drugs and that he'd been going to all these chemsex parties and all that kind of thing, he said, you know, I don't know this bloke anymore. All right, he's a mess, and I don't need this in my life. And then just walks out of the hospital to go live with Jay. The Ballon fans were livid about this. As though, and decided that this was that you should have seen online, honest to God, because there was a bit of a mess up with the uploads of the episodes this week. I think they were trying to shove in a scene about the lioness win, weren't they? So they did sticking up the first episode of the week. The Ballon fans didn't notice that. They just flew straight into Tuesday's episode. Didn't really care about any context as to why Ben was lying in a rubbish tip. That's
the funny thing, because if they'd seen the Monday's episode first, as you say, there was a delay uploading it on iPlayer. And why would you watch? For me, why would you watch Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday's episode without watching Monday's first? I don't know. Just
why would you upload them all at once? I don't know why you do that. I don't really understand why they did that either, to be fair.
I know.
But then, to be fair, I get the impression, really, that the Ballon fans don't really watch any other scenes. They just sort of fast forward through and then just watch the Ben scene. So it's basically EastEnders.
Yes. Goodness me. You're on pun central today. You should have heard Rob before we started recording as well. When we were reading through the rundown, his puns popping out of him.
I'm a pun machine. I'm
just a pun machine.
Pun machine. So Callum's basically just wandered off. The Ballon fans are furious about this because apparently they think that this is out of character for Callum. Now, I don't really understand what they think this is. What character though? Is this just the character of Callum they've created themselves, where Callum is literally sort of a beck and call of Ben at any moment, and if Ben messes up in any way, it doesn't matter because Callum will always forgive him and loves him beyond all measure.
Because every week Callum hears more and more things that are the exploits of Ben, and it must be demoralising for Callum to think to himself, "This is not okay." Understandably, this isn't the guy. Although, having said, I'm about to say this isn't the guy he married, but actually, was it not the guy he married? Because he knew what he knew what he was getting into with Ben. That's new, I guess. But like, he found out he slept with James this week. James was stayed over at Kathy's. And that was just yet another, kind of notch. And it's like, why would you
just sort of walk away?
In reality, exactly. Would you not, in your heart of hearts, not think to yourself, I've already admitted that I'm over it, and just hearing this additional information doesn't really help me? Because Phil and Kathy were begging Callum and Jay, because Jay said that he will now move in with Callum, but only to keep the flat warm for when Ben comes back. Don't you start a fan base for Jay and Callum. Jallum, how dare you?
Jallum. Jallum.
Jio. And it's just it's
Jarfway.
Jarfway, I like that. Jarfway. So Jarfway is moving in now. We're together in the same flat. And it just I live
for that. I like Callum. I like the idea of Callum and Jay living together. Because what they have brought back, what this storyline has brought back, is the relationship between Ben and Jay, because that was missing.
That's true.
For a good couple of years, and they've really re-established the Ben and Jay thing to the point where Jay even described Ben as his brother this week, which I loved, because that you cannot take away from the Ben and Jay relationship ever. All right, because that is one of the strongest, most endearing relationships in EastEnders history, in my opinion.
You're right there. You're absolutely right there. So it's nice to see them back as a unit.
I'm glad that started again, because Jay is a babe and I love him. So him wanting it makes sense for Jay to sort of just be like, "Do you know what? You and Ben obviously you're going to get together, and obviously they are going to get together at some point because otherwise Callum wouldn't even have bothered going to the hospital, would he? Obviously he still cares. So I fail to see, Ballon fans, what is out of character about any of this. Get a grip. Don't make me start again, because I will."
I don't think just calm yourself down. Have yourself some gamma beta latte. Phil had a one-to-one, didn't he, this week with Ben?
That was a lovely scene.
When Ben woke up. That was a nice scene between them. Again, this is something that we know. The two actors together, when Steve and Ben's the actor's name. Thank you, Max. Thank you.
Bowden.
Max Bowden and Steve McFadden. When they're together, they really do light up the scene. Honestly, they're really good together, remarkably good together. They
Those
do
hills sing.
They do. And it kind of, this was finally Phil's admission that he does sympathize and he understands. He knows that Ben was raped. He comes to terms with it. Not that he shouldn't need to come to terms with it. He should be supportive all the way. But he's now saying, I am going to show you more support. However, he's now kind of taken it a little bit too far, where he's now considering going to find Lewis and giving him a Mitchell beating.
Well, he was considering it until Kathy apparently seemed to speak some sense into him.
Yes.
Which seemed to, and again, what I am liking about this story is the fact that it's sort of brought Phil and Kathy together as Ben's parents. Said this before, because that whole thing seems to have always been forgotten, because Kathy has basically been non-existent throughout any Ben storyline for the past 2 years. So the fact that Kathy is so heavily involved with this, with Phil, and they're talking as Ben's parents, is quite nice to see. Because, like I say, it doesn't seem to happen that often. Mixed in with Jay as well. You know, it sounds like I'm just supporting all of the supporting characters for this storyline. But, you know, like I said, I thought Max Bowden was excellent this week. However, yes, Phil obviously gets on his high horse, immediately starts planning Lewis's immediate demise. But then Kathy kind of talks some sense to him and says, look, that's not the right way to go about this. Ben needs to go to the police, all right? This is what Ben needs to do. We need to support him up to that part. And eventually, Phil sort of goes, okay. Presumably went and kicked a cat or something on the way home. He's quite calm by the end of the week. But this sort of links into another story, which we'll talk about later, because he starts trying to get Ravi involved, because Ravi arrives this week. We'll speak of him later. But he goes home because him and Sam have had scenes together all week. Because Sam sort of arrived at the hospital, realised that the reason that Ben is in hospital was frankly half because of her. Because of the fact that the drugs have become very accessible in the club under her leadership. And eventually Phil sort of discovers this, because he confesses to Sam that Ben has been raped. Sam is rightly horrified, genuinely horrified by this turn of events. But then Phil discovers that what Sam has been doing with calling drug dealers in, and promptly chucks her out of the house. So Sam decides with Zack, because Zack is apparently Sam's little assistant in a lot these days, which frankly I don't blame her. And the pair of them basically created this plan to kidnap Lewis. And so as far as the plan to kind of Lewis's demise is concerned, it's not involved with Phil whatsoever. Well, you say this. However,
I haven't said anything. I've just forged crying.
I know.
That's why I smell shenanigans.
Well, it is going to be shenanigans, but tell me in all genuine honesty that you did not think that at any point that if Ben Mitchell gets raped, that this wasn't happening at some point along the line. Of course it was.
I knew it was.
So I don't understand how anyone could be surprised.
I'm not surprised. I'm just disappointed, Rob. I'm just disappointed, like a mother to their child. Exactly. Because
I'm not angry.
Why do they need to put shenanigans in? I don't want shenanigans. I've said this weeks ago. Well, stop with the shenanigans. I've got a tweet actually.
Months, years have said this.
I've got a tweet actually, and I'm going to read it out now because it kind of mixes in with this very well. It's by at Matt Phi Joe. And he said, the victim should not be put in a situation where they have to protect their attacker. And I agree with that.
I mean,
it's because that's,
yeah, fair enough.
Isn't that? Because that's what's happening, isn't it? Okay, I get that it's not Phil doing it, so perhaps Ben might feel a little bit of a distance from it. It's Sam doing it. Sam's trying to do it to try to get back into the good books of Phil.
Books. Yes, exactly. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Why Zack's involved?
Fail dramatically, by the way.
Oh, and also that's another thing that's kind of making me settle with the fact that it's going to go wrong. It's Sam Mitchell. Yeah. Everything she's done since her return and prior to her return has gone wrong.
Yeah.
So I feel comforted by that.
Zack is no gangster either, is he?
No, so he's not a dark Zack. He's not become dark Zack yet. Not like Dark Martin when he kidnapped Keanu and Linda. We've not done that yet, exactly. So I feel like Zack might kind of like put reason to it. I think Zack's reason Zack's involved is because he was the one who dobbed Sam in to Sharon.
Yeah,
and then Sharon. So he's feeling a little bit responsible for it too. So
Sharon could not wait to go around to Phil's and died off that, by the way. Practically ran across the square. To just
I know, wasn't she?
Clip-clopped her way across the square as quickly as she could. Yes.
Yeah, as fast as her long legs could carry her. But
like a gazelle, that woman. Is that your gazelle noise, is it? Is that the noise a gazelle makes? Good. Yes, so this is apparently will be happening next week, we assume. Now the whole thing about the shenanigans, and that tweet is very true. That's absolutely right. But well, I don't know how involved Ben's going to be with this, because we don't know how long Ben's going to be in hospital for, because he was in a coma for the grand total of about 45 minutes before he came around. So I don't know how long he's going to be in hospital for. Walford General may well do their thing and cure him as quickly as a Pokemon gets cured at the Pokemon Center, just in seconds, and then you're absolutely fine. But Sam and Zack are apparently going to have this massive kidnapping plot where Lewis is going to get thrown into the boot of a car. I've never seen that before, have we? And I bet he's going to get tied up and thrown into a warehouse. He's going to get tied to a chair. Okay. What happens from that point? I don't. But it's one of their favourite things to do, isn't it? I don't know what happens from here, because, like we said, Zack is hardly the sort of person to go and start going at him with a lead piping, and I don't really know what Sam's going to do. So what is Sam's plan? Yeah, well, exactly. So is Sam's plan basically now? She's going to get Lewis like tied up and stuff, and then maybe ring Phil and say, "I've got Lewis," and then Phil will arrive, and then we'll have the moral dilemma of, you know, Kathy will find out, Ben will find out, and they'll pursue Phil to this warehouse and stop him from kicking the living crap out of him. Maybe Ben will get an elbow into the throat, and then everything will be, and then Lewis will get taken away to the police, and that'll be that. That's my.
Well, do you think this will bring Lewis to justice then? Because that's the other thing that I'm kind of wondering. Do you think this is kind of, we are now at the cusp, at the end of the story, where this week, next week, Lewis will be taken to justice?
Feels like it, yeah.
Will we see justice being carried out? I would hope, and I say this with every blooming storyline where there might be a court case involved, that there might be a court case involved. When EastEnders does court scenes, they do them really well. And I enjoy them, and I would happily, and this is me, not a huge Mitchell Ben fan.
It's you.
I would have a week's worth of courtroom scenes, like I would have done with Zack.
But we're not going to get that. Yeah, I know. I completely agree. We're not going to get that though. I don't know what. I mean, that's the justice that you want, isn't it? So Lewis to be kind of sent to prison. That's the
justice that we should have. That's a moral story that they should be. They should go into,
because it's a sensationalist thing that kind of takes away from the issue of the storyline, isn't it? So it can be kind of saved by doing it the proper way and having him arrested by. But this is Walford Police, so Christ knows where he's going to end up. I don't know. I mean, I would agree with you. I would like to see sort of Lewis go down for his crimes. But I don't know. We'll see what happens. He may well end. The thing is, I can't see Lewis dying, because the characters that are involved in this situation, apart from, you know, Phil's never killed anybody, and the rule remains that Phil should never directly kill anybody. We've crossed the line with that a few times, but it's never happened yet, and I wouldn't like it to happen over this. Zack, no. Sam, no. That only leaves Ben, and I feel that would put Ben beyond help if he that's the word I was looking for. Thank you. If he killed Lewis, so I don't think that would be the right message to send out, and I don't think that would be the right direction for the character. And I think that would be the last thing they'd want the character to do, because then essentially, what is the message? If you ever get raped, make sure you kill your rapist. That's not the best message to send out, really, is it?
Make sure you're a dad like Phil Mitchell, and then he can get it organised.
Well, I will say. When Corrie did this, and remember this was under Kate Oates as well when she did this storyline at Corrie. As far as I remember, the rapist was blinded and then sort of left out and just left to wander the streets blind and scared, which is a suitable punishment for a rapist, but it wasn't the traditional sort of police approach. So,
but didn't he do some time in prison?
I may be wrong.
I'm sure.
I can't remember, but I remember that being a massive part of his. Yeah, but I remember that being a massive part of sort of the punishment of the storyline. I can't quite remember what happened after that. So if anyone knows the context, do let me know. But yeah, we'll see. We shall see what happens. Let us know in the comment section how you want this story to end. What punishment do you want Lewis to have? Do you think the punishment is coming next week? Stick it all in the comment section, and we shall read them out next week.
It's that time again, folks. It's time for the teeny tiny little story.
It's a small story. It was a small story.
It's a small story. So we're starting, first of all, with Felix and Finley. They've been organising Avery's funeral, but this week we also had Avery's, what was it, like a little party for him, a remembrance story, a wake of some sort.
Pre-wake, still asleep? I don't know what you call that.
I don't know, yeah. Yeah, before we all have parties before we wake up, and this was Avery's, it was nice to see the back garden of Karen's house. I thought that was quite exciting. Set things again.
That was?
I love a bit of a set. It was the back garden.
That makes sense.
That was fun. Yeah. That was fun. Back garden act.
A flat.
Yeah, we saw that back garden during Zack's escapades around the square on his final minutes. So you know. That was a good week. Oh, what a week. But the main things we need to take away from this story is that they lost the family money, and Karen said that she'll get them back for that. Also, I love that Felix has quite a strong bond straight away with Kim. That's an interesting little bond that they've grown together.
Yeah, that seems like a very obvious friendship, I think, straight away. So I'm pleased that they've sort of just thrown that in straight away. The two of them get on like a house on fire, immediately start sharing makeup and lipstick tips and all that kind of thing. So that's fun, you know, and that will bode very well for when Kim eventually owns the Albert, because I still massively push that to happen, because if Felix the drag queen, Tiramisu is going to return at some point, then obviously the Albert is the place for her. So it makes perfect sense for those two to be. Kathy, just sell the Albert, love. You don't need it. You don't need a club. It's too much effort. You run a calf, all right. You're getting on a bit in years, love. You don't need to be running a cafe and a nightclub at the same time. It's too much.
I mean, she's barely running the pub. To be fair, like everything that happens, everything that happens at that club, it seems to always be a surprise to Kathy. From the very first day she started, when drugs were being pushed in that club, she didn't realise it was happening.
Yeah. No.
You know, what club? Tina. She works for me.
It's still it's still very weird to me that she bought a gay bar in order for her son to get laid. That's essentially. I know. It's very odd. They were
the days, weren't they? They were the days. But we also saw Finley have a little bit of a story with Whitney. Because they saw a very upset Mia, because it's Mia's birthday soon. She'd been promised Legoland. Legoland seemed like such a long dream now to her, because the money's so tight. But luckily they shall go to Windsor. I'm presuming they meant Legoland Windsor, by the way, and not the one in Sweden or whatever. I mean, that would you never know, because he made £1,000.
It is a long way away. Yes, he did, because he sold Avery's cufflinks. Because they had this whole sort of debacle where Felix had given Kim a handbag with some money in it and the lipstick. Kim immediately kind of looked at this bag and thought, well, that's rubbish, and threw it in the bin. Which I thought, you know, a bit
rude, isn't it?
A little bit rude. And then they sort of realised that the bins had been taken away, so they were chasing a bin lorry around, and basically this money was lost. So Karen wasn't too thrilled about that. Hence why they then had to sell these cufflinks to give Mia this trip to Legoland, which it was nice. It was just nice stuff. It kind of established them as the two characters on the square. I'm enjoying their relationship. I'm enjoying the boys. I quite like them. So yeah, we'll just see where it goes from here. The funeral, I'm assuming, is going to be in the next couple of weeks. Felix is still quite keen on the idea of doves.
He is.
Even if it's just one dove, you know. What are you dropping, love? What are you dropping?
I've dropped me a little earbud.
Drop your earbud. Drop your
earbud.
Out
my ear. It's twice that's happened now.
Yes.
It's remarkable to me how much of the aftermath of Avery's death, comparatively to, just say for argument's sake, Dennis's death during anniversary week. I mean,
you had to forage deep to get that reference in, didn't you? But my God, you will. If there's any opportunity to slag off the opportunity of Dennis's death, Alex will jump on it.
Well, but let's be honest. That funeral never even happened on screen, and now we're discussing whether there's going to be dubs or not during Avery's death.
And
you know, a character that was only in for 2 weeks.
We're seeing we're seeing parties before the funerals even happened. Unless that turns out to be the event that we see, and we don't actually see the funeral. Let's not count our chickens before they've hatched, yes, Alex. But
no, absolutely, or dubs before they're launched. No, it does bode well, and we must say this is a Chris Crenshaw kind of showing his chops. He's clearly wants to have a little bit of that. If something happens on screen, it has to be referenced, it has to be referred to, and that's a good thing. Well done, executive producers. That's good. That's a really good thing. So we're liking that. It's not just jumping onto the next thing. So I am enjoying it. No. Like you, love Felix and Finley. Really kind of intertwine themselves into the cast and the stories very well. perfect fix between Felix and Kim. Like you would love to see Felix get inside that Alba, no pun intended. If Kim does end up buying it, I know we're really innuendos this week.
It's the heat.
It is the heat. And so Finley, we seem to be. Finley, do you worry? We talked about this last week, his relationship with Whitney. I mean, also Chelsea. Chelsea seems to be kind of like there too. So do you feel there's a love triangle developing?
Oh, maybe. You never know. Because it kind of sort of because obviously now Chelsea and Whitney are best mates.
They really are. They're attached to the hip.
They're best mates now, which is fine because I remember we massively kicking off about the fact a few months back there was just no friendships on the square. People either hated each other or were having sex with each other, but there was no friendship groups. And now we've got quite a lot of friendship groups kind of scattered around the square. So I'm really pleased about that. And if Chelsea and Whitney are one of them, absolutely fine. Because I was expecting once the Grey storyline was all done and dusted and they both realised they couldn't live in the house anymore, that they would just never speak again. So they are kind of quite good mates now. There was a really nice scene at one point in the week actually where they were talking to Stacey as well after the day after the party. They were sort of talking about their hangovers. It wasn't anything there wasn't anything other than just nice conversation between them. It was really nice. It's one of those natural moments. The scene later led on to something with Stacey and Ravi, but it was just that nice moment of just a group of mates having a laugh and talking. It just felt natural. And if that's more of the stuff that's supposed to be coming soon, then Clenners. Lovely.
Definitely.
So there we are then. So yeah, that's happening. Look forward to seeing more for the boys and sort of seeing where it goes. Whitney, I mean, it doesn't bode well for Finley if he ends up getting with Whitney or Chelsea, to be fair. Both of them were disasters on legs. But let's see where it goes.
Lovely. Right, coming up next then is our chat about Howie and Kim. So we have Howie and Kim and a new introduction to the square. Yet another young character being added. A Twitch streamer, no less. That's right, a Twitch streamer. I mean, I did know what a Twitch is. That starts me off right away, doesn't it? Young people, yeah, that's a Twitch. People who stream video games. I don't think it's just video games anymore, is it? You can stream like you building Lego houses and stuff like that now.
I think so. Anything like that, yeah. Basically, just streaming it to your fans. Streaming it to your fans, not only fans, but you're streaming it to your fans.
We should try a Twitch.
If you like.
We should try a Twitch. You and I one day. We try Twitch. We'll Twitch it out one day.
We'll
yeah,
Twitch together. It'll be lovely.
But for now, we're gonna have to deal with Denzel's Twitch because Denzel, who is the son of Howie, who he had with his ex-wife Delila, Delila.
This is secret.
This is the secret. I thought I'd get in there. And Kim, and he's now living with Kim and Patrick at the B&B, or the former B&B house. I like it. Again, more youth, more young characters being introduced. They're acknowledging that kids do things like Twitch, which is fun. You know, might bring in an audience. Do I sound like a 40-year-old man right now, don't I?
I would say 60. But
get on the Twitch.
Denzel arrived this week. I will say for a start, Delila looks like a total bitch, doesn't she? Like she's just had an attitude about her.
I mean,
yeah, like she's right attitude about her.
Chip on her shoulder, eh?
I know,
but we don't know. Howie might have been awful to her. To be fair, we don't know. We
don't know what Howie's story is.
Yeah.
Well, as far as we seem to be aware, he seems to be telling Kim that, well, no, I did tell you about my son. You know, when you were making us all those cocktails, and I did mention that. See, that to me seemed a little odd. Like, did he just blatantly lie about that? Or because it does seem quite possible that he would have said this to Kim and Kim was just too drunk to remember. Because that's quite a Kim thing to do. I can imagine that. Yeah. But on the other side of things, did he do that? And did he lie? So I would be interested to I've sort of put a pin in that line and to kind of think about later. So we'll see where that goes. But yeah, Denzel has arrived with his big old gaming chair. I'd like a big old gaming chair, Alex, I'll be honest. I would quite like one of those sort of, yeah, I would. Like, so I'm not that I'm a massive gamer, but I would quite like to have a big old back seat on this and just sort of just like let them know.
Oh, right, to do the podcast. I'd like a nice podcasting chair. If anyone wants to sponsor us, and anyone who does podcast chairs, sponsor us. And then we can get a free chair. Why are we doing this while we're talking to each other?
I don't know. It works, doesn't it?
It's like Lizzie
that's a gift waiting to be made, isn't it? There we are.
It certainly is.
So yeah, Denzel arrives. He's a surly little teenager, isn't he? Like he's not exactly the happiest.
He's a teenager. He's a teenager. I'm loving that. I'm loving the fact they're writing a teenager as a teenager, not someone who holds a mobile phone and goes, "Yeah, show us your moves. You've really got it." Let's never forget that day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, never. I mean, so yeah, Denzel's right. I didn't get a vibe that he's going to be around forever, though. I didn't get a vibe that he's going to be a new regular character, if I'm honest.
I got trial vibe. Personally,
did you?
I got let's test the waters and give him a screenshot and see how he gets on, and then if he's really good after 2 weeks, bring him back under an auspicious reason, like I don't know, Delila has died or something like that. But I'd rather she doesn't die, because like you, I'd like to know more about Howie and Delila's relationship. Yes. And whether there's more darkness than light to Howie than actually we first imagined. Because at the moment we just see Howie, he dresses up as a dog and he goes to children's parties. It was a penguin. It seems to be a different animal each week.
Remember, because dogs aren't gay, but penguins are, according to Kim. Don't forget that. Because that was the whole reason that Kim thought he was gay in the first place, because he dresses as a penguin.
Penguins
which
are
me
gay.
And Alex do off camera all the time.
I'm actually a penguin. You know that Chicken Boo cartoon? You know, the one from Animaniacs, when he dresses like a guy? I'm that. I'm dressing like a guy, but actually I'm a penguin. It's true. And not the chocolate penguin, or Tim Tams, as the Australians call them. Oh... I want a penguin. I love a penguin. Do you know you can make vegan penguins? There you go. Comment below if you'd like me to give you the recipe of how to make a vegan penguin. It's dead simple.
I'm sure it is. Just don't have a penguin. It's have a
no, they're really good.
That's a vegan penguin.
What, dipped in chocolate? A carrot dipped in chocolate. And also, when you have a penguin, do you do the milk trick? Where you chew the top left corner and you chew the top, you take a bite at the bottom, and then you suck it up like a straw through milk. Oh, I every time for me. I love to suck a penguin.
There you go. Good. So, so anyway, so I mean, basically that's it. Denzel is arrived. I'm trying to bring us back to sanity here, failing miserably. So Denzel has arrived, and that's essentially it. He's not getting on brilliantly in the B&B with sort of the residents of it. Really, is he? He's sort of annoyed Patrick straight away by slacking off the wallpaper. Patrick didn't like that. He's not great. He's not getting on brilliantly with Kim, because all he's really doing is sort of gaming and just being surly. And Kim's not overly fond. You can tell that Kim's not overly fond of him, really. And Howie, when kind of gave the opportunity to Kim, well, I could just find us a flat until he goes somewhere else. And Kim was like, well, only if you're sure. Yes, please do that, but only if you're sure. So I don't know whether Denzel is going to have an effect on their relationship. It's just the Kim and Howie thing is just sort of there, isn't it? Just sort of ticking along. It's fine.
It's not offensive, is it?
It's not at all, and it kind of gives Howie some development, which you will never ever hear me kicking off about character development. So yeah, there we go. See what happens next, but yeah, all good.
So the final story of the week is the biggie, and that is Suki and the Panasars. And my goodness, some development going on this week, ready for perhaps a very explosive week next week. So there's still no forgiveness within the Panasar family. Kheerat and Stacey are together, but Arthur overheard Stacey and Kheerat talking, and they immediately believed it might be because they were breaking up that Arthur felt a bit hurt. But it's actually Jean's return. But I don't really want to talk about that because that's happening next week. So I'd be more interested in kind of like talking about her return next week as well. But we should definitely talk about the Pokemon cards that Jags has been collecting for years.
Jags went up in my estimations because of that, because I quite like Pokemon. not the games and stuff. The games. I've never played the card games ever. You know,
don't have any shinies.
The card games were huge when we were at school, weren't they? Like everyone, like people got beaten up for Pokemon cards. It was ridiculous. But yeah, I quite like the idea. Jags used to sit.
Right, rough schools you went to down south. Oh, nice posh schools.
That's why I'm the man I am today. Yes, so there was some nice stuff with Kheerat and Stacey this week. I do like them as a couple. I really do.
Perfect.
However, that may well come under threat because the arrival of Ravi this week. And yes, by the way, thank you to everyone in the comment section for last week. We got the names wrong.
Yes,
lots of you told us, and we apologise. We should know what we're doing. We're terrible people.
We really don't.
Ranveer is the uncle. We should have stuck with calling him uncle, really, because then there would have been none of this trouble whatsoever. Ranveer is the uncle, and we speak of him shortly. We should speak of him shortly.
Well, no, Ranveer's not the uncle. He's not their uncle.
No, not uncle, but he's called uncle.
He's called uncle, but he's not their
term of endearment.
Uncle. Yes, within the community. Yes.
But Ravi's arrived, and as predicted by us, I think I said, it might not have been you I had that conversation with, but Ravi is Ranveer's son.
Yes.
And he arrives. He's got out of prison. Phil was just as surprised to see him as anybody else was. Well, it sort of makes me think that, like, if Ravi knew that he was getting out of prison quite soon, then what was the point in him sort of asking Phil for information on Kheerat? I'll just wait for a couple of weeks to find out myself.
I guess I vaguely think that perhaps he didn't know he was getting out as soon, or perhaps he wanted to plan early. Maybe he's a forward planner. Maybe he likes to get he likes to get things sorted before he leaves prison, and so he wanted to find
let out as a reward for being sexy.
But we knew that. But we know that they have a past together, Ravi and Kheerat, don't we? That they were friends. They weren't even friends when they were children. They were rivals as school kids.
I love this. Look at all this context we're getting for the Pandas. It's bloody marvelous. Yes. So Suki is basically being hated by her entire family. Eve's not even talking to her at this stage because of how she was with her last week. Understandable.
That scene.
I really liked that scene. I loved that scene between her and her because we're so used to sort of seeing Suki strutting around the square, handbag in arm, eyebrow arched, and just sort of like walking around all smug. Oh, I love Suki. But this week she was just crestfallen and just sort of a shadow of her former self, and just like when she walked away from Eve, like you could just see, like, you know, sort of head down, miserable. We've not seen Suki like this before. So I think it was really interesting to sort of see this development for her. Things weren't improved for Suki by any stretch when Ranveer turned up. Now, her and Kheerat basically had to give a presentation each. The nerve of this guy. The nerve of this guy. He just walks into someone's house and just demands that they give them presentations for businesses. He's an arse, this man.
He is an arse. And he also made comments about how Suki can learn something by watching the men today, which I thought was like, oh my goodness, you're really not attracting me to your personality at all, Randy.
He's not my favourite. He's not a nice bloke, really. Suki won it because Ranveer wasn't impressed by the fact that Kheerat's basically abandoned Suki. So that he's very disappointed in Kheerat for that. Not angry, just disappointed. And takes Suki out for dinner and says, right, well, we need to know how far you're prepared to go for the business that we want to go into, and starts rubbing his hand up her leg.
I know.
It was kind of quite grim-inducing. Suki's face, just sort of frozen, staring into the distance. Just staring into the distance with a glass of wine, just kind of like perturbed. I loved it. So now I have been promised that next week is quite a big old week for one of my favourite characters in Suki. I've forbidden you to tell me what's going on because I want to discover it all myself on screen. But you're promising me some big stuff with Suki next week, aren't you?
I mean, we may have heard a few bits and pieces, but yes, there's some big things going on with the Panasars next week, and this is just the beginning, so it's going to be really, really, really exciting. I mean, as I say, it's interesting that they're kind of, as you say, they're building this family, this relationships into the Panasar family. It's funny that there's still that kind of divide in the family. The only one who seems to be trying to kind of break through the wall is Dotty. She seems to be kind of trying to convince Vinny. She's almost gone for the weakest link, hasn't she? and started with Vinny. So if she can get Vinny back on side with Suki, then perhaps the rest of the family can get back on side. I mean, it feels inevitable that something may happen that could bring the family back together again, or perhaps even make the family more distant from her. What do you think? Do you think Suki could cope, like kind of still being this kind of isolated character on her own? Or does she need her family behind her?
I mean, she does. And I think Suki's one of these people that sort of really, who likes to, give the impression that she's more than capable of handling life on her own. But she needs her family around her. Otherwise, Suki wouldn't have done half the stuff that she's done. When she first arrived and pretended she had cancer, that effectively was because she wanted to have her family around her and she was feeling like she was losing them. So she does some quite extreme things in order to keep her family around her. So what else she's capable of in terms of that, we do not know. She's also quite a controlling person, as we've seen many a time over the couple of years that we've seen Suki. I am interested to sort of see where the Eve and Suki stuff goes. I am fully sold now on that. I wasn't convinced at first that sort of Suki's sexuality was necessary, but bought it now because the performances have been great, and it's just felt more convincing than I thought.
It felt natural.
So I'm loving all of that. It did, and I just love it. And I also love the fact that they're really taking their time with Suki in that respect.
Yes,
because that to me is a sexuality confusion storyline, and I don't mean to just hate on Callum all the time, but the way that Callum was revealed as being. But basically, Callum was revealed as gay on one Friday, and by the following Friday, he was snogging Ben in a park. That to me isn't a sexuality confusion story. That's right. You're turning gay now, and let's get the memes going. You know. Whereas with this, we're really taking our time with Suki and Eve. So I applaud it. That's how you do it. So I'm very happy.
I agree with you there, actually, and I love the fact that Eve said this week that she can't be friends. She has to keep her distance from Suki, and And she said that, but you could tell she didn't mean that. And I feel like Eve will eventually come back to Suki. And obviously they won't end up being friends. But I love that they're exploring Suki, exploring her sexuality in this way. Like she's kind of, she clearly feels like she's got feelings toward Eve, but she doesn't want, it's not that she doesn't want to explore it further with Eve, is that she doesn't want other people to know about it. And it's funny that she almost has nothing to lose at the moment, because she also was told by Kheerat this week that she's going to lose all the businesses, the extermination business and all the different rentals. He's going to start taking them over, and all she's going to be left with is the Minute Mart. But the Minute Mart sent her a letter this week saying that they're going to change the rates, which was nice, because I genuinely didn't understand what was going on. I did love like with the business. I did love the line this week when Suki said, like, we're just barely scratching the surface of making any money on the Minute Mart. And I thought, well, that's probably the case because you've got nothing on the shelves. So like, start stocking up the shop and you might have things to sell.
Zen shop. It's quite a Zen shop, really, isn't it? Quite minimalist.
So she has nothing to lose.
Have some stock to sell.
No, she has nothing to lose, but yet she still feels like she can't take that step and, you know, be with Eve.
Yeah, well, I was wondering, sort of like, if her family hadn't have basically abandoned her and all moved out, would she have gone to Eve and asked her for that drink? Do you think, or would she sort of? It's like, would that have happened? Or you know, would she have just sort of like shrugged and sort of just left Eve on the back burner, because she went to Eve presumably because she didn't have anybody else to speak to, and even Eve then turned around and said, "Do you know what? No." Which maybe I think gave Suki real food for thought, because she's realised that her actions are having consequences. I love Suki. I absolutely love Suki. She's such a layered, fascinating character. I want so much more from her. There is so much potential for Suki to be one of the big characters of the modern era, and I absolutely adore her.
Oh, absolutely.
The fact that she's got so much more coming is just so exciting. Yes, love it.
Next week, I feel like it's going to be a real big talking point.
I can't wait. I cannot wait for next week.
I mean, it's going to be exciting. I just know it. And yeah, I mean, I think we've done the build up to it. So yeah, so the main thing is at the moment is that Ranveer is made a move with Suki this week, and Ravi's out of prison. And he is. And Ravi doesn't seem that kind of interested in making any friends with the Panasar family either. No, so we said about a rivalry.
Making a move on Stacey. Yes.
Also true. We said there'd be a rivalry. Everyone just kind of presumed it would be between the Mitchells and the Panasars. Is there introduction of perhaps more of Ranveer's family? Has Ravi got more sisters, more brothers? I mean, his wife Mila.
Who knows?
Is there a rivalry brewing between them instead?
Who knows? It does seem that basically it seems like the Panasars are the sort of family that would have quite a few people that they've annoyed over the years. So even within their own family, or within maybe not their immediate family, but their sort of outer family, and there's people that they've known throughout the years. You know, they're quite a ruthless family, and it seems like they've always all the kids have been brought up to be sort of quite ruthless and each out for their own. So yeah, it wouldn't surprise me if sort of Panasar enemies kind of keep coming out of the woodwork. You know, they're similar to the Mitchells in that regard, that they've grown up a certain way. So life is this, and that's the only way we know how to do life. And all of a sudden, you act like that, and the consequences come back and bite you, and you don't know how to handle them. I'd love it. Just absolutely love it.
Interesting phrase.
Let us know in the comments section.
Yeah, when the consequences come back to bite you, that's and how you handle it afterwards. That's an interesting phrase. As you say, comment below if you have any thoughts about this week's EastEnders. If you're watching us on YouTube, if you're not, or you're listening, you can listen to us on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, and you can get in touch with us on our Twitter and Instagram at Walford Weekly, or you can find us on our Facebook group. Just search Walford Weekly podcast. However, this is not the end of the show, not just yet, because we're going to now read out. I'm sorry, but we're gonna finish the show
I'm
talking about
the word. It's fine.
by talking about what you have sent in to us on I Ain't One to Gossip.
You know me, I ain't one to gossip.
So last week we asked you guys whether I was right or Rob was right about skipping the intro on the EastEnders box sets. And, you know, we had a little chat about it and we asked you to get in touch with us. And we also popped up a poll on our Twitter and we got a result from that poll. So we said, Alex, myself, I skipped the intro. Rob does not skip the intro, but who's right?
Never.
And do you know what?
Alex.
Well,
who's right, Alex?
Just about. It was almost, as you said, it was almost a Brexit vote.
Who's right,
and it
Alex?
was 54% said that you should never skip the intro, while 46% said that they do skip the intro. I mean, I'm surprised by how close it was, though. Thank you to everyone who voted.
I was surprised by the amount of anger that this caused. Like, one person I think said to you, "I used to like you, Alex. You've lost friends over this, Alex." And quite frankly, that's quite correct.
I have that tweet right in front of me as we speak. So at Bridge Street Troll said, "To think I liked you, Alex. Never skip the intro. For the last couple of years, it was the only part of the show worth watching." I mean, he's got a point there. Oh. Plus, as an East Londoner, I always try and see if I can spot my road as the Thames turns around. That's interesting. I wonder where they live. I wonder where they live in
the Millennium Dome
map. Do you reckon they live in the Millennium Dome
or in the Jetty?
I'd like to live in the Jetty. I'd like to live.
Quite cool to see your house in the EastEnders titles every single.
Wouldn't it just?
You would never skip. You would never skip it there. There is my house where I live.
Yeah, but how long would it get a bit tiring? Like just every day? That's my house. Never.
I'm not sorry. Never.
At Danny Greaves XXX said the first episode of the week I always play the intro to build up excitement. However, the rest of the episodes I don't bother. So there you go. So they watch the first one,
all right, yeah,
and then they skip it. Do you do that, or do you watch every single time?
Every single one.
Oh.
And the credits. Just let it play out. I don't see the point. It's just like, it's all part of the experience. Sorry, that's just me.
But you can get straight back into the action. You can just skip, go to the next episode.
Gives you a few moments to sort of correspond, to kind of think about what you just watched. Think about what the show is trying to tell you. Think about what could happen next. The ramifications of the scenes that you've just absorbed through your eyes. And look at these names that have brought you what you've just watched on screen.
That's true. That's true.
These people, you know, do you know what a grip is? I don't know what a grip is, but thank you, Grip, for doing what you did. Thank you, Rigger, for doing what you did. I really appreciate it. Thank you, Costume Supervisor, for doing what you did. Otherwise, we wouldn't have had that costume so well supervised. These people deserve the credit that they get. I think that people on the credits deserve more credit.
Fair enough. Final one then about this subject is at Caddy CTS Lover, who said, I skip it because I've never liked the current theme and the 2009 era CGI intro. Conversely, I don't skip it on the classic era EastEnders. Somehow the widescreen 1999 era opening graphics have, for me, aged far better, and I prefer the older version of Simon May's theme tune. So there you go. So
see, the interesting thing. Well, no, I could understand that because we had a conversation once about the opening titles and about whether they were going to get changed soon because we're kind of overdue a new set of intro, a new intro.
Very overdue.
To come along every 10 years or so, didn't we? So we might get one soon. And I kind of went into the fact that I absolutely despise the current theme tune and title of the Coronation Street, and that I would skip if I'm honest because I hate them. They're too glossy. The theme tune sounds rubbish, and I don't like it. But I do like the theme tune to EastEnders. So who knows? Would you like to see a theme tune change? Let us know in the comment section below, or by any of the following outlets. You can contact us.
Hang on, Rob. We've got an email to talk about as well. We've got an email to talk about.
I'm so sorry.
Goodness me, jumping the gun far too quickly.
There.
I know.
I was nearly off then. Oh, calm down, Rob. Calm down.
Rob. Okay, just have a couple of minutes, and then you can let the people know how they can get in touch with us. However, we got an email this week, and if you want to email us, Rob will tell you the details of that at the end of the show. And it's from Dear. It's from Brandon. Brandon got in touch with us, and it was about a conversation we had a couple of weeks ago about two-handers and what two-handers you'd like to see. So Brandon said, hello, in response to your question in yesterday's video, so there's quite an old email, so I apologise. A few amazing two-handers I can think of would be Kathy and Lewis. Maybe Lewis returns and is in denial, thinking he didn't rape Ben because Ben came to him. And the two-hander could be Kathy confronting Lewis's ideology of what rape actually means, using her previous experiences to make Lewis realise what he's done. Another great two-hander I would love to see is Suki and Eve. There has been so much mystery as to why Suki is so hesitant to question her sexuality, and I feel that a two-hander between Suki and Eve, with Suki's hesitant, reclusive attitude and Eve's more outgoing nature, could really play well with each other, eventually resulting in Eve and Suki working together when Suki's husband eventually arrives. Hope you enjoyed these ideas. I keep forgetting about Suki's husband. He's still to come along as well, isn't he?
Daddy Panasar. Yeah, exactly. He's to come in a few months. Oh, there's so much stuff coming for the Panasars. I'm so excited. Some really good ideas there, actually. I like the idea of Kathy and Lewis. Like, you wouldn't automatically assume that sort of like a guest character in Lewis would necessarily deserve a two-hander, but that's a brilliant idea. I would love, like, Kathy to be the one that sort of confronts Lewis ultimately and makes him realise what he's done, and they have a big old conversation. That would be beautiful. I'd love that. And I'd love that. That's a great idea.
What about Suki and her husband doing a two-hander? Imagine being the actor who comes into the show and your first scene is a two-hander.
First episode is a two-hander. Well, it sort of reminds me. Do you remember when new Michelle arrived? She had a two-hander with Sharon like the first. Like,
she did, with all that swearing.
Yeah, it was like the scenes that we watched this week at the chemsex party, but with swearing, wasn't it? It was little ears were offended.
They were, but
yes.
But yeah, no, I see that for me would be a really cool. I'd love for a new character to be introduced in a two-hander.
That way, it'd be interesting, yeah.
Yeah, with the Panasars and the direction they can seem to be going. I feel like Daddy Panasar, husband to Suki, being introduced in a two-hander, I think would be brave, but blooming, what a way to introduce yourself. What a bang, eh? What a bang.
Yeah, what a bang. What a bang. Yes. So, yeah, I mean, I'd love to, we've said it before. Please bring the two-handers back, Clenners. If anything, so far so good, but we'd love to see a two-hander at some stage. Keep all your comments and questions coming in. We always love to hear from you, and we shall. Can I say it now? Can I say it now?
You go on.
Is it now? Go. By contacting us on Twitter and Instagram at Walford Weekly. You can find us on Facebook at Walford Weekly Podcast. On YouTube, don't forget to like, subscribe, click the bell to get notifications about our spoiler videos. And you can listen to us on Podbean, Apple, Spotify, or any of your favourite podcast sites. And you can email us on robwalfordweekly@gmail.com or on alexwalfordweekly@gmail.com. I've learned that so well now. It's great. It just kind of spills off my mouth now. It only took 2 years, but there we are. We should be back same time next week. And apparently, according to Alex, we've got quite the week to discuss next week. And I cannot wait.
It's going to be good. It's going to be good.
It's going to be good. It's going to be good. Make sure you're there. Join us next week. From now, it's goodbye from me.
And it's goodbye from him. Have a good one. Goodbye.
Goodbye. Pretty sexy stuff.